So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, yesterday we talked about Jameson Williams, the wide receiver from Alabama, and over the last couple of days we've talked significantly about the first round, how well the Detroit Lions did grading their trade up into the first round, grading their first two picks at pick number 2 and pick number 12, and we have came to the conclusion that obviously the Detroit Lions had a pretty good first round of the NFL draft. But today, we are going to talk about one of the draft's biggest sleepers. We're going to talk about one of the most underrated players in this year's draft class that I don't think is getting nearly enough recognition, and I don't think is getting nearly enough respect for the player that he is and for the player that Brad Holmes is bringing in to the Detroit Lions. That player is, of course, second round pick Josh Paschal, the 6'3" defensive lineman from Kentucky. Now, Josh Paschal is one of the best players in the NFL draft, in my opinion. I think he is one of the best interior defensive linemen in this year's class. I don't think he's good as Devontae Wyatt. I don't think he's as good as Jordan Davis. But right after those two from Georgia, I think the argument could be made that Josh Paschal is the third best defensive tackle in this year's NFL class. And not only that, Josh Paschal has the versatility to play anywhere on the defensive line. He played linebacker, defensive end, and interior defensive line at the University of Kentucky, and he is one of the most versatile and successful players to come out of the SEC in this year's draft class. Josh Paschal is one of the highest graded players in college football a season ago, with a 90 overall PFF grade, which was the highest of any defender in the SEC. Josh Paschal in his senior season put up 52 tackles, 16.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and a lot more pressures, hurries, and other times affecting the quarterback. He was one of the most impactful players in college football for a Kentucky defense and for a Kentucky team that was a quiet, really good team last year, right? They were quietly one of the better teams in college football, being ranked multiple times throughout the college football season. And although they didn't have their best games versus Georgia or Alabama, they were one of the sneakier good teams of college football a season ago, largely led by their defense, which was largely led by Josh Paschal. Josh Paschal finished his career at the University of Kentucky with over 137 tackles, 35.5 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, an interception, which he actually returned 75 yards, which didn't end up being a touchdown, but he returned it 75 yards. So that shows you the athlete that Josh Paschal is, be able to outrun a majority of the offense for 75 yards down the field. He also came away with 3 forced fumbles and 55 hurries. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Josh Paschal is one of the more versatile players to come out of the SEC. Where Jordan Davis may only be a 2-down player and Devontae Wyatt may only be a defensive tackle, Josh Paschal can play a multitude of different positions, ranging from linebacker, edge rusher, to even defensive tackle, which I think is going to be his primary position in the NFL. I think the Lions will make him bulk up a little bit, put on a couple of pounds, and he will primarily play the Michael Brockers position, where I think he is being drafted to primarily replace. But talking about Josh Paschal's versatility, just a season ago, Josh Paschal played 23 snaps over the A-gap, 87 snaps over the B-gap, 287 snaps over the tackle, 252 snaps outside of the tackle, and even took off-ball snaps at off-ball linebacker. He took a majority of those in his freshman and sophomore campaigns and saw fewer and fewer of those opportunities in his junior and senior campaigns. However, I believe that is largely due to the fact that he just really found his role in the Kentucky defense, and that was more as a pass rusher than a linebacker. But if the Lions have really big needs at linebacker, linebacker, that could potentially be a role Josh Paschal fills for a couple snaps if injury or fatigue or any number of situations calls for that to happen. Josh Paschal can also do that. Having somebody that can play at a top tier level at defensive line, edge rusher, and even linebacker is a rare commodity in the NFL. That is not something that you see very often with a linebacker. That is not something you see very often with an edge rusher, and it's certainly not something you see very often with a defensive tackle. Looking at Josh Paschal's pros as a player, talking about the reasons that the Detroit Lions may have drafted this guy at 46. Josh Paschal is really, really strong, has great leverage on the defensive line, has a really good technique, and brings more experience than almost anybody in college football. I believe he was a fifth-year senior at the University of Kentucky, making him a little bit older, yes, but also making him much more experienced on the defensive line, playing against Alabama multiple times, playing against Georgia multiple times, playing against LSU in 2019, playing against Auburn when they were really good a couple of times throughout his collegiate career. I mean, they played some really, really stout competition as the Kentucky Wildcats, and Josh Paschal was a huge leader on that defense for multiple years as they played and faced that top competition. And Josh Paschal didn't even play bad versus the Georgia Bulldogs a season ago. When he faces the top competition of college football, he is right up there with some of the most productive players in collegiate football, and one of the best athletes and one of the best players in college football. I think he is the most underrated player in this draft class for the Detroit Lions, and you can make the argument is the most underrated player in the entirety of the NFL draft. Josh Paschal, on top of all of the things he brings on the field, very similarly to Aiden Hutchinson, has a really, really good tactic or has a really, really good habit of bringing leadership, of bringing a high motor, and bringing a versatile player. He will play a variety of roles for the Detroit Lions in 2022, but where I really see him shining is in the interior of the defensive line. I believe Josh Paschal will play a defensive tackle or an interior defensive line position in the NFL. As I said, I think the Detroit Lions will ask him to put on a few more pounds, and I think they will ask him to officially transition to interior defensive line for the Detroit Lions, essentially replacing Michael Brockers. They may even cut Michael Brockers this season because they don't really need him anymore with the addition of Josh Paschal. But I would imagine that veteran leadership is something that they will keep around. But I believe Josh Paschal will take a majority of snaps at defensive line this season. I think that on pass rushing downs, you are going to see Aleem McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike. You're going to see Josh Paschal, Levi Onwuzurike, Aiden Hutchinson, and Romeo Okwara take the field as your primary 4-down pass rushing set. And when you want a run stopping set, I believe you're going to see Aiden Hutchinson, you're going to see Josh Paschal, you're going to see Aleem McNeil, and then you're going to see Romeo Okwara on the other side. That interior defensive line is going to rotate a lot depending on situation, depending on down, distance, whether it's a pass rush rep or whether it is a run stopping rep. And I think that Josh Paschal can fit into any one of those formations in any one of those schemes and play at a really high level. I think he's a better pass rusher than Aleem McNeil, and I think he's a better run stopper than Levi Onwuzurike. He's kind of the perfect middle ground between the two, allowing both of those two, Aleem and Levi, of course, to specialize in one of those roles and allowing them to be more productive on a snap-by-snap basis, allowing them to be fresher each and every down that they play, and allowing them to be more efficient play after play for the Detroit Lions. I think Josh Paschal is the missing piece in the interior of this defensive line, and a defensive line that now looks really young and really talented, marked by Josh Paschal, Levi Onwuzurike, Aleem McNeil, John Pennicini, and Michael Brockers, the veteran leader. That is 5 deep of really good players that have all started or will start time in the NFL, right? Josh Paschal, of course, being a rookie yet to take a snap. Everybody else in that defensive line has started and played high-quality games in the NFL for at least a full season. I think our interior defensive line is really, really good, and I think the interior defensive line rotation is now complete with the addition of Josh Paschal. Now, you may say, okay, why take an interior defensive tackle? Why take an edge rusher, if anything, with the 46th overall pick when you already have both Okwara brothers, you have Charles Harris, you have Austin Bryant, you just drafted Aiden Hutchinson 2 picks before. Why take another edge rusher? Well, again, I think he's going to play interior defensive line more than edge. I think he really completes the interior defensive line position. But at the end of the day, Josh Paschal had a first-round grade by a lot of people. And I even saw some people putting Josh Paschal as high as a top 15 pick, the highest of which I saw him going to the Baltimore Ravens at pick 14. that means the Detroit Lions walked away with potentially three players with first-round talent and first-round grades by a lot of people, and potentially even 3 players that were worthy of going within the top 15 of the NFL draft at picks 2, 12, and 48. Josh Paschal is a really good football player. I think he will bring a lot of things to Detroit on the field, and I think even in the locker room, he's going to bring leadership, he's going to bring a motor, he's going to bring energy in the locker room, and just like Aiden Hutchinson, this is the perfect personality for the Detroit Lions locker room in order to change the culture, in order to build the culture into something that the Detroit Lions really want to have in order to find success very soon in the NFL. Now, I think the argument could be made that you could have gotten better positions, that you could have gotten more impactful players than Josh Paschal at the 46th overall selection. Of course, Nakobe Dean, DeMarvin Leal, and even Jaquan Brisker was still on the board at this point, but you also have to look at how the trend of the draft was going, and at the end of the day, edge rusher was starting to go. Defensive line was starting to go fast, and it was starting to go very often in the 2022 class when Josh Paschal went off the board. I believe there were 3 defensive linemen in just the second round alone taken before him, and the Lions only sat at pick 46. They would not have gotten a quality defensive lineman at the 97th overall pick. So yes, you sacrificed JT Woods. Yes, you sacrificed Jaquan Brisker and Nick Cross and the rest of the safeties that you may have had a higher grade on, but you get arguably the best defensive player left on the board, at least the best defensive player on the line or in the front 7 left on your board, and you still get a really good safety later because the trends of the draft indicated that safeties were going to fall. So Brad Holmes played the value game. Brad Holmes played the positional value game, right? Everybody talked all offseason about positional value. You can't take a safety that high. Edge rusher's more important. Defensive line's more impactful. And then when Brad Holmes plays this game, everybody got upset because safety wasn't addressed. That's exactly what everybody asked for. He addressed the big need. He addressed the big need with a higher impact position, a player closer to the defensive line, and he got the best defensive lineman left on the board while potentially sacrificing that safety position that was so heavily needed. But at the end of the day, that did not happen. Obviously, they drafted their safety. They got that guy at 97, so that point is essentially irrelevant. But I did want to make the point that everybody said to pass on safety for defensive line, and as soon as Brad Holmes did it, everybody got mad that he passed on safety for defensive line. So with that being said, that is all for you guys today. I think the defensive line is officially complete with the additions of Aiden Hutchinson and Josh Paschal. Overall, I give this grade a B+. I think he's a very good player. I think he will have a huge impact in year 1. And again, I think he completes the defensive line. Could you have gotten to Kobe Dean? Yeah. Could you have gotten Jaquan Brisker? Sure. Could you have gotten JT Woods or Nick Cross or anybody else? Could you have even traded back and potentially gotten Josh Paschal with some better value? Maybe. But at the end of the day, Brett Holmes got a very good football player. And it may not have been the biggest position of need. It may not have been the best player on the board, but based off of culture, based off of fit, and based off of the player himself and the talent that he's bringing, he is very much worthy of that 46th overall pick. And I think the Lions get a B+ on this pick in particular. So with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about Josh Paschal down in the comments below. Did you like the pick? Did you not like the pick? Is the pick growing on you? Because I know that's the common consensus for a lot of people. I'd be very curious what you guys think. But all of that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.